we are 363 days out since we had our last full committee hearing. One of my colleagues wanted us to celebrate the one-year anniversary, but we missed it by a couple of days, so unfortunately we can't do that today. Also, I think the allocation that you were talking about, which suggested $7 billion below the President, you suggested $14 billion. It's actually $7 billion below the President. But, Mr. Chairman, I do have an amendment to the 302B subcommittee allocations at the desk and ask that it be considered as read.
Without objection, the gentleman will explain it.
On behalf of the committee Republicans, I'm offering for the committee and its consideration a proposal for 302B subcommittee allocations providing $1.90 trillion. Within that package, the discretionary spending for fiscal year 2011, which is the same as last year's level. My 302B allocation would reflect that 2011 dollar amount at the 2011 level under this responsible 302B subcommittee spending plan, which makes a significant adjustment to your proposal. Additional resources would be directed to defense and protecting Americans while still providing a sensible level of non-security spending for key investments in areas such as education, medical research, and transportation, among other things. Skyrocketing spending over the past 3 years by the Democratic majority has led to unprecedented levels of deficits and debt that are now stifling our nation's recovery and posing a long-term threat to our country's future economic prosperity. Congress must take prudent steps now to cap this spending or risk devastating near and long-term consequences. The Republican proposal would put the brakes on the runaway growth in government spending that has led to the explosion of our nation's debt and deficits. The Lewis alternative would save taxpayers $31 billion this year alone as compared to the OB allocation, and at least $39 billion as compared to the President's budget request. By ensuring that excessive spending isn't built into the government's bottom line in the future, over the next decade, the Republican plan would save $341 billion in budget authority. By contrast, the Democrat majority has increased non-defense discretionary spending by over 85%. I guess it is. It's the new arrangement of the room, gang. That's it. But by contrast, the Democratic majority has increased non-defense discretionary spending by over 85% from FY 2007 to 2009, and has increased this spending at least another 12% so far for FY 2010. Chairman Obey's 2011 spending allocations would continue this unsustainable spending. Since the President took office in 2009, the administration and congressional Democrats have added $2 trillion in new spending to the January 2009 CBO baseline they inherited, including $1.6 trillion in new discretionary outlays. Of this, the bulk is for discretionary outlays from massive increases in regular discretionary spending unrelated to either the stimulus package or the war. The administration would prefer to place blame on George Bush and the previous administration, but the fact is President Obama and the Democrat majority own this record spending and this record deficit. Chairman Obey's 302B spending proposal would add an additional $108 billion to this projected deficit over the next decade, including $21 billion in new borrowing baseline. We simply cannot afford to recklessly borrow and spend any longer. The Republican alternative would restore harmful Democrat cuts to defense and security spending that could impair our military readiness and national security. It would fully fund the President's budget request for defense and security activities in order to provide a strong military, protect Americans at home and abroad, and ensure continued Medi-Cal care and other critical assistance for our nation's veterans. Chairman Obey's discretionary allocation would cut defense and security spending by $7 billion in order to fund their domestic priorities. I urge my colleagues to demonstrate to your constituents that you understand their anger, that you're listening to their concerns, and that you're committed to reining in out-of-control government spending. Let's take this small step to demonstrate real fiscal discipline and put Uncle Sam on a diet. Support this Republican alternative.